Hello guys, so welcome to this new video of some recent swing trade setups which I feel should give some good amount of returns in the near term and has also got a really good risk reward. So this is my first pick. So this is Anmol India Limited, as you can see. So this is a fairly new stock, but what we see here is an all-time high breakout. So it has broken out its previous all-time high with some really good volume and momentum, as you see on the screen. So if I were to talk about the important level here, so that is exactly at 230. So we should ideally see a retest here, right? So if I were to talk about the price action to form, then we should see something like this forming and then it bouncing off from the 230 or probably little bit above it, right, and hitting all new all-time highs fairly quick. So that is basically a way of riding the momentum here. So this is a good setup. If the retest is complete, then we can set our stop losses right below the retest swing low, and then we can aim for at least an 1:2 or a 1:3 or more, or just go with the momentum, right? So this was my first pick. So Anmol India, you must keep this in watch list, as we should expect a retest, or even if there is a follow-up green candle, then also we can enter. Let's see how it proceeds. Let's move on to our next setup. So this is FinCurve Financial Services Limited. So here this is a classic price action setup again. So the long-term trend, that is fairly on an uptrend. So I have marked two trend lines here. So this is the recent counter trend line and this is another trend line, right? So we can see some kind of a descending triangle pattern forming up. So if I were to talk about the breakout here, so the breakout has been done with a really good volume, as you see, and the momentum is also really high, and you see no wicks on the upside. So that indicates that there is a really small amount of sellers present. So this zone, if I were to mark, right, so this zone is a confluence zone, right? This is a pretty important zone for the stock, right? So no worries, we should be waiting for a retest or a small retracement to somewhat lower levels, and then we can see the up move, right? So keep this in watch list. This is also a pretty risky setup, right? So the risk reward should be good, but again the risk is pretty large here, right? So this is a risky setup, right? So trade accordingly, guys. Let's move on to our next setup. So this is Hester Biosciences, I'm sorry. So what we can see here is again a descending triangle pattern. So this zone of around 2250 to 2300, that is a really important zone for the stock, right? So we see multiple bounces from this zone, right, here many times, and the 200 EMA and the support zone is forming some kind of a confluence here, right? So talking about the recent double bottom and the good amount of momentum coming in with a good volume as well, as you see here. So this too is enough to indicate that there can be a good breakout here, right? So here too we should be waiting for the level of around 2530 or ideally 2500 to clear, and the prices should sustain above it, right? And then we should see a retest of that level and then a up move, right? So this is the setup. Just keep this in watch list, right? We can there might be a chance that there is no retest, right? That can also happen, but again ideally we can enter after a retest, or if there is not a retest, then we can put our stop losses below the breakout candle and then target for 1:3 or 1:4 here. So trade accordingly. This can also give some good returns if the setup plays out well, right? So these were my three risky setups, somewhat risky setups. Not all of them are really risky, but I will now move on to our next setup. So this is a fairly safe setup and also a low return setup, right? So this is on Hindustan Unilever, a really heavyweight stock of the Nifty 50. So if I were to talk about the price action, again what we see is this zone of around 2200 to 2230, that has proved to be a really strong zone, right? So prices have bounced off from here, and now we can see some momentum and volume coming in. Volumes are not that significant, but pretty good enough, right? So again here also the strategy should be same, and this can be entered right away, right? So we can put our stop losses just below this swing low, right? So this is around at 2260 70. We can put our stop losses there, and our first target can be 2000, this resistance level, so that is around 2430, followed by 2500, that is also an important setup, a level, and then followed by 2550. So trade accordingly. This is a fairly heavyweight stock, so do not expect it to move up really quick, right? So again, this is a low risk setup. Trade accordingly, and if you are trading in really large quantities, then you can put in some good quantities here. Again, take care of the stop loss, right? If you want to play it safer, then you can wait for 1 or 2 more candles and then enter here, right? So this was the video, guys. We have showed you 3 to 4 setups from high risk to low risk, and then let's proceed on to the next video where I'll show you some more setups next week. Thank you.